The issues that the Inuit people in this country face, the issue that all Canadians face, are only going to be resolved where there is clear and direct leadership. Our goal should be to give young Aboriginal Canadians the opportunity to fill that gap. And the fact is, it's more than an economic issue. It is a moral issue. It is the single most important moral issue we face as a nation, I believe. And there is, and we have got to come to grips with it. Now, some people are going to say, and on this I will close, but some people are going to say, well, you know, we're going through a financial crisis. We can't afford it. We have a deficit. Well, I got to tell you, you know, I can be accused of a lot of things, but the one thing nobody can accuse me of is not knowing about deficits. So let me just tell you a couple of issues if you're going to eliminate a deficit. The first thing is, if a deficit is going to be dealt with successfully, it must be dealt with, the burden must be borne by everyone. You cannot target certain people while other people get off scot-free. And what that really means is you can't target a few who are vulnerable and unable to respond. And what does this mean for those of us in this room? Well, it means that none of us in this room is going to suffer personally because Aboriginal education is underfunded. Nobody in this room is going to suffer personally if Mary Simon's plan is not adequately funding. But Inuit students will. Aboriginal students will. And I can tell you, asking children to bear the cost of a deficit that they never created is simply unconscionable. I believe very much, and I understand that yesterday you talked about infrastructure, Ann told me this. I believe very much in the need to build infrastructure. But let me tell you something. You can defer the building of a road. If you don't build it this year, you can build it next year. But if a 6-year-old doesn't learn to read by the 3rd grade, she will pay catch-up for the rest of her life. You're only 6 years old once. It's not a road that can be deferred. And if you don't learn to read when you're 6 and 7 and 8, you will never catch up, no matter how many catch-up courses are out there. So don't tell me you can't afford to fund education. This is economically, it is as dumb as a bag of hammers.
I believe we must now turn our attention to educating our way to prosperity and healthier communities. It simply cannot be done through training, through just training. We need to fix our education systems. Secondly, to fix our education systems, we need to close the gaps common to all Inuit regions so that a greater percentage of the young people entering our schools today graduate from high school and then hopefully go on to post-secondary education.
I'm an Aboriginal youth from the north and a student currently at law school, and it's impressive to see the interest that there is in the north. And the most recent panel with Paul Martin and Mary Simon was by far my favorite. It just hit home to everything that I'm concerned about and what I'm most passionate about. So that was the most impressive part of the conference.
Tom, the floor is yours.
On this point, that the military lens and security which our government has promoted is by and large not supported in the North. Secondly, the diplomatic challenges for Canada are intense on issues like the Northwest Passage, and since that requires a diplomatic solution, this country needs a full-court diplomatic press around the world, the circumpolar world and the world, to make our points known on the Northwest Passage, and there is no evidence that that is happening. Thank you very much.
We do not see a security threat in the north, and that's why our Arctic strategy takes another starting point. There's one starting point which is very important to be aware of when you look at the strategy. That is, it's been very important to say the starting point was it had to benefit, our policy has to benefit the people that actually live in the Arctic. That means you will see less about security, but more about environment and other issues, because that's where we see the important thing that needs to be done. So
I'm provocative because I think we should think big as a country about our Arctic potential. Okay? We are an Arctic country, right? We've done great things as a country. We built a railway across a continent to create a country a little over a century ago. In 3 years, we built the third largest navy in the world to defeat Adolf Hitler. We can do great things, and the Arctic is our future. And I sometimes wonder when we quibble about whether or not to spend $100 million on affordable housing in Canada's north, whether we're missing that big picture. I sometimes say to federal bureaucrats, look, if you're worried about nickel and diming the north, well, why don't you put the north, Canada's Arctic, up on eBay, right? And see how much some other countries would be willing to pay for these opportunities. How many trillions of dollars would other countries be willing to pay for the opportunities that Canada has in the Arctic? And why are we nickel and diming this when we should instead be thinking about this as an opportunity for large-scale investments in people, in environmental protection, and resource development? I mean, we could be a great country.
We are slightly over time now, but I'd like you to agree with me that it was certainly worth it and to join me in thanking a truly excellent panel.